Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about Atlanta potentially trading pick number 8, and then we're going to unpack a recent report that has the Falcons going QB on the earlier side. But make sure to subscribe really quickly because we're going to be going live on round 1 and then providing videos for every single pick that Atlanta makes. And I don't want you to miss out on any of the fun this weekend for the NFL Draft, so hit the sub button down below. Now let's talk about the Falcons potentially shopping pick number 8. So first off, some context. The NFL announced via Adam Schefter that no decision on the tampering allegations, just allegations, allegedly, for Kirk Cousins will be made pre-draft. And I think that's very important for the Falcons because that means if they are bracing for a punishment, if they know they're guilty and they know the evidence is low-hanging fruit, which I would think a punishment would have been decided pre-draft if that was the case, they may know that a storm is coming for them in next year's draft. So they may be thinking ahead a little bit going, we should probably trade back, even if we don't love the idea of it, because we want to get a 2025 second-round pick because we are afraid we may lose a day 2 or maybe even a first-round pick next year. So there's been a recent surge of teams looking to trade up. No surprise. It is smokescreen season. You're going to see a lot of information. Some of it you have to think, why is this information coming out? So just always have that stored in the back of your head. But let's get into some paths that could develop that would allow the Falcons to trade the 8th overall pick. Path number 1, a team wants a top 3 wide receiver. This to me seems like the simplest path for the Atlanta Falcons trading the 8th overall pick. If a team wants Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze, and Malik Nabers, and one of those 3 guys, most likely Odunze or Nabers, is still available at pick number 8, they could be taking down a cell tower in Atlanta to try and get the Falcons' 8th overall pick. Here's what Dan Graziano from ESPN had to say in an article of his. The people I talked to think we're likely to see more trades in the second half of the first round than in the first half. The Colts, Jags, Rams, and Eagles are all teams I've heard have been making calls about potentially moving up. So remember 2 of those teams that Graziano mentions, the Colts and the Jags, because shortly after reading what he wrote, I came across a tweet from Daniel Jeremiah that says, looking at possible teams for an Ayuk trade, and I keep coming back to the same 2, Colts and Jags. So if those 2 teams are willing to trade their first-round picks this year and probably a little bit more, don't you think they would be willing to take the same amount of resources they were going to give to Ayuk and move up to pick number 8 to get Rome Odunze or Malik Nabers right before the Chicago Bears at 9, who have been heavily mocked and rumored to be going Rome Odunze at pick 9? So the Atlanta Falcons could be sitting on a gold mine, and they may be looking to get some future draft capital because they could be bracing from a tampering allegations, allegedly, punishment. That's path number 1. Path number 2. Teams want to move up for an offensive tackle. This draft is loaded specifically in 3 positions, I'd say. Quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle. So because it's so deep at offensive tackle, you could see some patience from some teams towards the back of the line. Or you could see them go, let's jump up and let's go get our number 1 tackle. Daniel Jeremiah also tweeting out, to summarize my last 5 phone calls, everyone is moving up for an offensive tackle. Now, I see that, and then I also read an Athletic mock draft where they went beat reporter by beat reporter making deals, and this one definitely caught my eye because it had the Falcons not only making a trade out of pick number 8, but to the New Orleans Saints, of all teams, which I really struggle wrapping my mind around ever happening. But Terry Fontenot did come from New Orleans, so maybe him and Mickey Loomis still have a good relationship, and they decide this is a trade that benefits both clubs, where the Saints go from 14 to 8, because if there is one thing New Orleans is taking this year, it is an offensive tackle. Trevor Penning sucks. Ryan Ramczyk is injured. Andres Pete is a free agent. Their top 3 guys are either injured, free agents, or bad at football. So I could see them moving up to get their number 1 tackle. and Atlanta drops back 6 spots and picks up another top 50 draft pick, I could see both sides going, listen, we may not like each other, we hate each other, but this is a win-win for both parties. And to be honest, I don't want to see Atlanta help New Orleans be successful, but I don't hate this trade for the Falcons. Like, one, they may get the player they were going to get at 8, at 14, just based on the team needs between 9 to 13, not reflecting a lot of similarities to Atlanta's. And if they don't get their guy, they may get a guy they like just as much and still have another top 50 draft pick to use. So, as much as I hate the idea for the Falcons making a deal with the Saints, the devil, this could be something that both sides walk away from feeling like they're on top. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's video, I do want to highlight our terrific sponsor here at Chat Sports, Game Time. If you enjoy the content we produce, go check out Game Time because they are helping us keep the lights on. And with that being said, if you want to go see a Braves game, a playoff basketball or hockey game, or any other local sporting event, concert, comedy show, download Game Time today because they're giving Falcons fans $20 off their first purchase with the code CHATSPORTS. What I love about Game Time is you can click all in price right from their homepage, so you don't get bamboozled into what the actual price is for your tickets when you get to the checkout portion. So once again, download the Game Time app, and when you create an account, first-time users can get $20 off with the code CHATSPORTS. Terms apply, but once again, use that code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Don't worry, I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Shout out to Game Time for supporting us here at Falcons Today. Game Time, it's the best place for the last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. That's path number 2 for Atlanta trading out of 8. Path number 3, J.J. McCarthy begins to fall. And I'm putting these paths, by the way, in order of likelihood in my eyes. But when you look at the top 10 of the NFL draft, maybe New England stays at 3. I don't think maybe. I think New England stays at 3 and goes Drake May. What if the Cardinals say, sorry, but we're not trading out of 4. We want Marvin Harrison, and no one's going to make an offer worth it. So now you're at the Chargers at 5. They've got Justin Herbert. They could trade the pick, but they also could stay put and just take Joe Alt because that's what Harbaugh wants to do. And then you land at the New York Giants, who could have a lot of interest in J.J. McCarthy, or maybe that's been a whole bunch of smoke and mirrors to drive up interest they could take J.J. McCarthy just to see if anyone would trade for their 6th overall pick. And they would ultimately fall back on their big board, which has Malik Neighbors higher. And now you've got the Titans at 7, who I think like Will Levis, and maybe they go Rome Odunze to pair with Will Levis, and all of a sudden the Atlanta Falcons at pick number 8 could be a hot commodity for a team like the Minnesota Vikings that weren't going to jump up all the way from 11 to 4 or 3 or 5, but they could swing for the 8th overall pick, which would be the most picturesque perfect trade for Atlanta because the Falcons get Kirk Cousins, the Vikings get J.J. McCarthy, and we'll know in 4 to 5 years who made the right decision, free agency or the draft, to build your quarterback room. So I don't think that one has a whole lot of legs to it, but a lot of people thought Will Levis would go top 10 last year. Guy went round 2. So maybe we see J.J. McCarthy slip a little bit. Now, with that all being asked, if you were in charge, would you trade back from 8 or would you stay? We're going to look at one more path for Atlanta, but just as things stand right now, pulse check on all the viewers, what would you do? Stay or trade back? Path number 4, this is where I kind of started the beginning of the video at. Atlanta really wants 2025 draft picks to the point where they're not the ones answering the phone. They're the ones making the phone call, trying to get more picks for 2025, even if that means taking a trade that by the trade value chart doesn't have them coming out smelling super great. If they're that desperate because they are so afraid of picks being stripped away from them next year that they want to get extra picks so they still stay at even keel. I mean, Adam Schefter did say earlier this week that the Falcons and Eagles' ongoing tampering allegations investigation will not conclude this week. And right now, as things stand, Atlanta has 6 picks for the 2025 NFL Draft. Their first, second, third, fourth, fifth. They don't have a 6th. That went to the Rams for Van Jefferson, but they do have a 7th that came from the Rams for Van Jefferson. And they don't have an extra 7th. That was traded to Contavious Street from the Eagles. So with that all being said, let's switch gears and talk about the possibility of Atlanta going QB early in the draft, because there's been a lot of recent smoke that links Michael Penix to the Falcons. And here's what Jeremy Fowler had to say most recently. Multiple people have told me this week that they believe the Falcons like Penix a lot. Enough to take him number 8 overall? That's hard to say. But he'll likely be long gone by the time the Falcons are on the clock again at number 43. Falcons brass, including Terry Fontenot and head coach Raheem Morris, flew all the way to Seattle to watch Penix work out for a few hours, then flew home. No dinner, no stayover. Penix has enough interest that the top 15 isn't off the table for him. If Atlanta were to take Michael Penix at 8 or even 43, I would strongly disagree with this move. We've kind of covered this subject before on recent episodes, but let me just condense it all and summarize it, hopefully for the last time. Invest in your $180 million quarterback in Kirk Cousins. You have 2 picks in the top 50, and you're in arguably the weakest division in the NFL. You should be using those picks to better your roster to maximize Kirk Cousins' short stay with the Atlanta Falcons that you invested $180 million into. You can do that by giving him wide receivers to throw to, offensive linemen to protect him, defensive backs to make sure you maintain a lead, pass rushers to get after the opposing quarterbacks. I simply do not care which position it is other than quarterback. That is the only spot where you are not going to have a better product on the field. Michael Penix could become a really good quarterback in the NFL. I don't think it's going to be with the Atlanta Falcons because they have made their bed. If you spent all that much money on Kirk Cousins, you should follow it up by improving the surrounding cast and crew, not drafting his replacement before he even takes a snap for the team. And I'll add this. I know Jeremy Fowler said Penix may be long gone by pick 43. Hot take. I think he'll be there in round 2. I don't think Bo Nix or Michael Penix go in round 1 on Thursday night. I like Michael Penix too. That's the crazy thing about all this. I think Penix is the 4th best quarterback in this draft class. I just don't think it's a good time for Atlanta to use a top 50 pick on a Kirk Cousins replacement. It's a little bit tone deaf, given that you signed him to this monster contract for one big selling point, so that he could retire a Falcon. And before he even takes the field, you're already looking to replace the guy. I don't think that's going to sit very well. And I don't think you should make decisions based on Kirk Cousins' feelings, but you do have a $180 million investment in the guy. Like, that's a big enough investment where maybe you should weigh in what his view on the whole thing would be about. Just some food for thought. So if you were Terry Fontenot, would you take Penix at 8 or 43? Either one. Just, are you interested in Michael Penix? If he fell to round 5, sure. Value alone, fine by me. You can still have your top 2 picks be devoted to other positions that can help this team in 2024 and 2025. But for me, I'm passing. Now here's how my big board is shaking out for Atlanta at pick number 8. These are how I rank the players. I think Rome Odunze, again, with some level of expectation for who could be there at these picks. I like Rome Odunze the most, followed by Malik Neighbors. Dallas Turner really being boosted up a lot because of the positional need for Atlanta, quickly followed by Terrion Arnold and Jared Verse. The difference between Odunze and Neighbors is minute. The difference between Neighbors and the next 3 is rather large. But I understand that Atlanta made no investment in the pass rushing position this offseason, and a top 10 pick is likely going to be made on one, whether I like it or not. As for pick 43, here are my rankings. Again, can't say definitively who's going to be there, but if Kool-Aid McKinstry was there, he would be my number 1 guy. If Ladd McConkey's there, shortly after Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think Kool-Aid can probably have a longer, well, I would say longer, but I'm higher on Kool-Aid. That's what I'm trying to say. Max Melton, the cornerback out of Rutgers, I have him 3. I've got Braden Fisk at number 4, and then I've got South Carolina's Xavier Legette at number 5. I don't think A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy are going to be there. I don't think Jerzon, Johnny Newton, or Byron Murphy is going to be there at 43. But I think I could see a world where like Troy Franklin's there, and he does not crack my top 5 actually. So with that all being said, draft day, round 1 is nearly upon us. Make sure to subscribe. We're going to be keeping you guys in the loop throughout the entirety of the 2024 NFL Draft. So do not miss a thing here when you're subscribed to the channel.